Between them, they have more than 50 years of experience at the highest levels of television news in Oklahoma. And all three eventually came to the same decision. It was time to move on to new challenges. Now they find themselves making, not covering, breaking news. And all three are now free to share their informed and sometimes pointed opinions on the state of Oklahoma journalism in 2021.
John Bishop Kelly graduate Matt Reynolds will be in the Mets dugout tonight.
After years of crafting his own sportscasts and morning news copy in Tulsa and Fort Smith, Arkansas, Charlie Hannema now helps craft the message of Governor Kevin Stitt as his chief of communications.
It's different when you work for the governor or anybody else where you're kind of writing their content and helping them with their message, because the hardest part is letting go and just kind of hoping that your boss goes out and crushes it and delivers it.
The accident that killed Eric Rollerson happened over the weekend.
Hannema often shared the news desk at KOTV in Tulsa with former investigative reporter and anchor Jennifer Lorne, who is now the executive producer and host of the Cherokee Tribe's Emmy-winning show, OCIO, on OETA.
When you're in the news industry, you're kind of a cog on a wheel. The wheel is always turning. The infrastructure is there. It's going to keep going whether you're there or not. When I switched over to Cherokee Nation and creating this television show, there was no wheel, there was no cog, there was no machine, and it was building every piece of that machine was my challenge.
We're on the corner. Got flashbangs.
First of all, I'd tell 14-year-old Aaron, dude, run away. Do not get into broadcasting. Do anything but that.
Aaron Brillbeck began his journalism career as a teenager on the radio in upstate New York. He left his reporter's position at KWTV in Oklahoma City last year to join the Oklahoma Sheriff's Department as their public information officer. But that's not all.
I'm learning a lot about police work that I didn't know before. I thought that I knew much more than I did. So part of my role as public information officer here, I'm also going to be going through deputy school, becoming a deputy.
All three agree on these three things. Their former profession has changed exponentially, not necessarily for the better. And one of the major reasons for that is social media.
When I was coming up as a reporter, you didn't post. You didn't want people to know what your political beliefs were and your political affiliations were. And that doesn't seem to be the case anymore.
A lot of the behind the scenes folks, like the producers and some of these web folks and the assignment desk, don't necessarily seem to think that those rules apply to them. And I can see their social media pages and I can see some of their positions. And so it does kind of put a question in your mind of, is the governor going to get a fair shake here? I'm not saying that affects their judgment. I'm just saying that does raise some questions when you're on the other side.
Lauren adds that the amount of time spent producing additional online content might be better utilized crafting more in-depth reporting.
I remember right after I left, some of the reporters were required to download an app to do these like little personalized sizzle things. And I was like, what is that?
It went from reporting to now you're a reporter and a photographer and a field producer and you're an IT specialist. And you've got to do all that while trying to put together a well thought out, well-researched story. And it just wasn't really appetizing to me anymore to continue feeding that beast.
Which is not to say there isn't plenty of pressure to get it right in their new roles as well.
It's an emergency and you have 4 million Oklahomans leaning on every word to try and stay safe or try and stay informed. That's a little bit different than an OU football game as well.
You've got the inside scoop ahead of anyone else with some major issues. Are reporters basically getting it right or are they getting it wrong?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think by and large, we've got a press corps that's committed to accuracy and fairness.
Honestly, there's a couple times that we've been burned, and it's left the sheriff, who has been extremely accessible to the media, a little bit leery.
While Lauren isn't directly involved in public or media relations for the Cherokee Tribe, she concurs that Oklahoma journalists try to report on Indian issues fairly. However,
I think that the tribes have had to work very, very hard over a number of years to get the attention of the media. A lot of Native issues are very complicated, very, very complicated, and it takes quite a bit of learning to understand all the ins and outs of an issue. But, in order to give the tribes a fair shake, that's a journalist's responsibility, and they need to be doing that.
We all can see the country's very divided. Can the media play a positive role in that, or do they just stay out of that? That's not their job.
It's not their job. It's not their job to try to mend partisan fences. It's their job to report facts and facts only.
What about you, Charlie?
honestly, it's on the public to seek out information and want to be informed instead of just, I read 3 lines on Facebook and now I'm an expert on issue X, Y, and Z.
It would be nice to see the media step back and take a different, use a different perspective and say, you know what, we're going to dive really deep and provide you with all of the ins and outs of this topic so that you can make an informed decision that doesn't rely on 3 lines of Facebook.
You're given an opportunity to get back into broadcast news, and your answer is?
If you
Jennifer?
pulled up a Brinks truck to my house right now and offered to unload it, the answer would be a very firm no.
Charlie, how about you?
If I could anchor the news with Jennifer Lauren and not have to work weekends, I would do it.
There you go. And Jen, I'll let you have the final word.
If you said, I'm going to give you a newsroom, you're the news director, and you need to turn this around and run it based off of your news philosophy, I'd think about it. But no, I would not go back to being a news anchor and reporter. But I don't know, Charlie, I love working with Charlie, so it'd be tempting.
Full disclosure, I've worked with all 3, and all 3 are consummate professionals.